me introduce you to Dr. Rackner. She has written several books. She is also co-authored and have many chapters in other books. She's been quoted, interviewed by everybody that you see on the right-hand side. She is also the sponsor to the this book called The Myth of the Rich Doctor, which we're going to show you here in just a little bit. She was actually highlighted in what's called MD, this MD website, and she'll have to give me some more information about that in just a moment. But here's the book, The Myth of the Rich Doctor by Dr. Vickie Rackner, talking about why it's somewhat in the heads of the doctors where they don't know really what's going on, and we'll actually talk about that more today. So, Dr. Rackner, it's time for you to pop on the video with me, and let's get you started here. And thank you so much. Now, you are a traveling woman today. You are all over the country today.
I am. I was in a radio studio recording some podcasts earlier today. I'm in a different town than I was when I woke up. So, yes, it's a delight to be able to join you, Eric.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. She was saying it's just wonderful that she can wake up in one place, be in another place, and then be on a webinar with us here this afternoon. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to do what you're doing here for us and for these folks here that are looking into getting to medical billing. There's no doubt that, Dr. Rackner, that folks, as they're looking into getting to this part of it, one of their biggest questions is, why would a doctor even want to use me in the first place? You want to kind of just tackle that question right off the bat?
You bet. So I was in private practice, and what I can tell you is that I was very, very good at taking care of patients. The business part of my practice did not really interest me that much. And I decided right from the get-go that I knew that my cash flow was important enough so that I wanted an expert focused on that. Like, I knew I didn't want to do my own taxes. That's why I got a good CPA. And I knew from the beginning my revenue was going to be contingent on being able to send out bills and get paid by the insurance company. So I did not want to leave that to chance. I did not want to put that in the hands of amateurs. I did not want to take away my office staff's time and attention to do that. I wanted them focused on patient care. I made that choice, about 25 years ago. It was one of the best choices that I have ever made. And that was back in the day when outsourced medical billing was not all that common. Most doctors were doing it in-house.
And just to set the stage, because a lot of people ask, well, what kind of doctors can I do billing for? You were a general surgeon, so someone on the call today could literally do billing for a general surgeon. Why don't you kind of talk about that? Because I think a lot of people think, well, if you're a general surgeon, you've got to be employed by the hospital.
No, that's actually not true. We are seeing a trend of doctors in private practice thinking, I can't handle the billing, I can't handle the business parts of medicine, so I'm going to sell my practice to the hospital or clinic. I think we as a country lose when that happens, and so I do my best to help doctors successfully stay in private practice. So when I began my career, again, all of those years ago, about 80% of doctors were in private practice. Today, we're seeing a shift, and depending on your community, it may be that 40, 50% of doctors are in private practice. But I wouldn't let those numbers scare you, because those doctors are committed to staying in private practice. And whether they're a primary care physician, who generate $120,000 a year, or a cardiothoracic surgeon who generates $1.5 million a year, all of them do the same thing. They treat patients, they get a diagnostic and procedure code, and they send it to the insurance company. So any doctor in private practice is a prospect for you. Every doctor in private practice is facing the same kinds of business challenges for which we have no training. So, we used to say the whole world is pre-op. Well, for you, anyone in private practice is a prospect for you. And you might want to think about being strategic in whom you approach. I mean, wouldn't you rather work with a plastic surgeon who makes $1.5 million a year than So there's good markets every place, but you can be strategic about whom you approach. And, Patrick Phillips, the CEO of the organization, and I, over the past couple of months, taped an entire course about how you can target so that you're working with your most profitable clients.
Absolutely, and she brings out a great point. For those that are listening, you're prospecting, you're trying to figure out whether this is the right business for you. We here at ABS, we have continual education, and one of those continual educations, Dr. Rackner just talked about, a complete webinar that was done on how to actually get through what we think of as the gatekeeper in that office. So, folks, we show you actually how to get past that gatekeeper from internally here at ABS. Obviously, we can't do all of that this afternoon. We certainly don't have the time, but those are some of the things that you can take advantage of once you become a licensee. We're going to show you step by step. Now, Dr. Rackner, this is so interesting. You would have thought that we planned it this way. I know Patrick called you up and say, hey, could you do the interview? You agreed to do the interview with us a week or so ago. But just 2 days ago, July the 17th, today's the 19th, so this came out Monday. There's an article that came out on medical economics, and folks, I've got the link down there at the very bottom if you want to kind of jot that down. But here's the article. It says, now this is a website that is targeting doctors, and it says this: if you operate a medical practice, you should be outsourcing. Now, again, if you need a third-party credibility to this, this is the website to go to. He starts off by saying, as if giving your key employees menial tasks isn't enough to consider outsourcing. Now, he's talking directly to the doctors. The ever-changing landscape of the medical industry should be the deciding factor. Dr. Rackner, you talk about an ever-changing landscape. Again, like we've already mentioned, we don't know if the Affordable Care Act is going to be as it is or whether it's going to change. And that's just in one area of how the medical industry is changing.
Right. So when I started my practice, my mentor said, take good care of patients, everything else will take care of itself. This was in the pre-managed care era, and things have radically changed. Patients have more access to information about billing and costs, and they are consuming health care. They're deciding about healthcare choices, much like I decided, what airline to fly on. They're making choices on the basis of costs and schedules and maybe some kind of loyalty program. If you're part of a big HMO, you want to stay there. Well, patients are behaving more like consumers, which means that successful doctors need to conduct themselves like business people. And the problem is that we get absolutely no training about how to run successful businesses. We get lots of information about how to diagnose and treat patients. But even the doctors who are borrowing $200,000 to go to medical school, they don't get any basic financial literacy to try to figure out how they're going to pay that back. So doctors today are facing business challenges. How do they attract and retain great patients? How do they decrease their costs? How do they optimize their cash flow? And in the absence of formal training, they sort of make things up. So maybe a doctor in private practice is seeing that cash flow is a problem. My goodness, how am I going to meet payroll? And so their solution is going to the bank and taking out a line of credit, instead of seeing that, well, gee, maybe if I followed up on the 30% of claims that are rejected and actually got paid for that, that would be a better way of increasing the cash flow. So you've got really smart doctors who are facing some tough business challenges who have no formal training to be able to do it. And just think about this. You are considering becoming a licensee because you want to be your own boss. You want to run your own show. Well, there's doctors like me who feel the same way. Being somebody's employee, for me, would be selling out.
Mm.
And so if you can help those doctors sort of figure out the business challenges so that they can retain their autonomy, it is a win all around. And one thing, Eric, I love about your business model is that your licensees do well by doing good. I mean, this truly is a win all around. Licensees, I think, are making a major contribution towards maintaining the health of our American healthcare system. I think that if private practice doctors go the way of the mom and pop grocery store, we as a country have lost part of our richness.
There's no doubt. I've said that with so many people that I talk to. You're not just getting into business. Obviously, people are trying to look for a way to improve their own lifestyles and get into an entrepreneurial type of situation. And then they find about this whole medical billing part of it, and they said that's good. And medical billing doesn't seem like it's going to go away, even though that there's a lot of things changing. But when you start to dive into it, you really do start to see how I'm impacting my community, and how if I can keep my doctors private, and as you said, not get bought out by a hospital and they sell out, man, that makes better health care for me. As we go on, just real quickly to the same article, I want to bring out a couple of things here for those that are on, just so that you folks hear Dr. Rackner, and then you're hearing medical economics. You're not hearing ABS today. You're really hearing from other sources other than what we're looking at here. And so in the study that was done in according the study in 2016, the Deloitte survey, 59% of those that respondents outsourced to cut costs. So 59% doctors are already thinking, if I outsource, I'm doing it so I can cut costs. 57% outsource to focus on core business. These are the two things, Dr. Rackner, that you've already said: cut costs and focus on core business. Now, again, you would have thought that you wrote this article, but you didn't write the article. You just said it without me even having to put that up there. Then it goes on, more than 50% of those that responded noted that outsourcing services added value in their business case development, strategic assignment, and contracting, and more. And he goes on, still not convinced. I'll put this last part up here and then let you kind of finish out here. Almost 80% of the doctors surveyed felt positive about their respective outsourcing relationships, whether it's from IT, and it did say billing processes and etc. It not only frees up the employees' times to work on tasks that they were hired for, but he also says, but it also unkinks your cash flow. You would have thought Patrick Phillips wrote that one, Dr. Rackner.
Absolutely.
So, folks, we've got this available here. You can obviously go research this on your own. You can make a copy of this and start reading it out there, but those are some of the things that are there. Now, Dr. Rackner, Benu is asking a question here, and I'll do my best to kind of talk about this. You can certainly add your 2 cents into it. He's asking, can you please talk about MACRA and if this applies to billing? It does. Well, let me say this. Many people that are on the webinar today, you may not even know what MACRA is. Let me kind of explain it to you very quickly as best I can. Medicare is moving from the way that they're going to pay the doctors. They're paying the doctors one way by the codes that are out there. Now they're moving towards more of a performance pay for the doctors. And so this is what he's asking. And to give you the quick answer that we don't get lost and bogged down in this, Benu, yes, it does apply to billing because it's going to affect how the doctors are going to get paid. And the great thing about it is our iClaim platform actually creates a dashboard for the doctors to keep up with so that they will be able to get paid there. So you want to add any more to that? I don't know if we would need to talk more about that.
I do. Okay, so there's what's going on the ledger books, right? Like there's the dollars and cents. But then there's the emotional life of doctors. And doctors are concerned about a couple of things. First, we get worried about theft and fraud because we are a targeted industry. I had a friend who actually got her entire retirement embezzled by her trusted office manager, and the money was gone before she knew it. So in the back of all of your doctor prospects' minds is this question: am I going to be safer? Am I going to, set myself up for success and take temptation out of the way by decentralizing billing? And personally, I think that's a great idea. The second thing I want to let you know is one of doctors' biggest fears is coming under scrutiny by Medicare. And for the first time since Medicare's inception, they've actually released data about how much an individual doctor gets paid. And when they looked at that data, what they saw is that most of the money is going to a very small percentage of the doctors. And there is this suspicion that, well, maybe these doctors are not doing things ethically or legally. And the truth is that some of the, high billers like ophthalmologists or oncologists, in part medication is folded into them. So there's good reason why Medicare is paying higher amounts of money to some people. But anyway, doctors want to make sure that their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed with Medicare billing because they do not want to come under scrutiny.
You got it.
So yes, there's this alphabet soup about this pay for performance, and we're going to be seeing lots more. Yep. But the emotional issue is, how am I going to not come under, the thumb of Medicare? And if they're outsourcing their billing, if they're working with professionals, they have a much better chance of avoiding the kinds of things that trigger audits.
You got it. And folks, here at ABS, we back up all of our licensees with knowing, like she said, the alphabet soup of everything that's coming on, whether it's macro, MIPS, AMPS, whatever it might be. We're here to help out with that, and we'll guide you through it. We've got people that are specialties in this, so we'll actually help you do this. And again, this is actually helping you get your foot in the door with a lot of doctors. All right, so Dr. Rackner, we're going to try to get through as many questions as we can. You pulled out, these are 3 questions that you pulled out specifically for this webinar today. Before I get into those, folks, if you'll go to your control panel, you'll notice in your chat box, I've actually put the link to that article for medical economics for your own self that you can go there, download that, read it yourself, so you'll have that as part of your arsenal of information that you can. And don't forget, again, type in some questions and we'll do our best. So let's go with these 3 questions here. We're going to talk about doctor's reality. You've already been touching on that already, so we're going to dive into that a little bit more. We're also going to talk about the doctor's financial pain. Again, something that you've already been touching on already. And then finally, how are there opportunities for us here at ABS or for those that are on the call? Those are the 3 questions. Hopefully we'll kind of do what we can here in the next few minutes and get through these questions. So let's tackle this first question here, Dr. Rackner. So Dr. Rackner, what are some of the realities facing doctors today?
It's a tough life for doctors. It's getting more and more difficult for doctors to do the things that they want to do. And in fact, Medscape, and you can sign up for a free Medscape account if you want to learn more about doctors, recently published a lifestyle survey that's showing that epidemic numbers of doctors are facing burnout. Now, what is burnout? Burnout is toxic stress. So it's enough stress that it impairs performance. We know that financial issues contribute to burnout. We also know that even cash flow can provide a relief valve. So we're seeing more and more doctors stressed. And again, I think the underlying problem is doctors' dysfunctional relationship with money and their poor business training. But this is leading to lots of different manifestations. And it's manifesting in many different ways.
Now, in one of those ways, I found this part of it right here where it says 2 out of 3 doctors are saying they're just squeaking by or in the red. I mean, that's got to be tough on doctors. I mean, obviously, we already know all of our own financial problems. If the doctors are having financial problems, this is what I think you were saying and how it parallels with how the doctors are actually going to treat their patients. if the doctors are stressed out, they're not going to give the proper care to their doctors. Now, one of the things that you say is about this, the secret sauce. I'm going to let you talk about that so you can plant that in the minds of those that are on the webinar today.
All right. So very briefly, my story is that I was in a graduate program when I had a surgical emergency. I was bleeding internally, and by the time I got to the operating room, about half of my blood volume was in my pelvis. So I really thought I was on my way out. And I woke up just knowing I was going to be a doctor, save other people's lives like my own had been saved, and so it's not surprising that I became a surgeon. In 2000, I made a shift. I decided that what I really wanted to do was help doctors and patients collaborate more effectively to get better medical outcomes at a lower medical cost. But what that really meant was that I was leaving the practice of clinical medicine and I was entering the world of business. I thought I had a pretty good value proposition and there wasn't going to be much of a problem, but I really, really struggled. I kept on investing in mentors and courses and coaches. I invested about as much in my business training as I did in medical school. And I remember going and speaking over in Europe. I went to plug in my laptop. And as you know, you can't do that directly because Europe is wired differently than the United States. You need an adapter. And I thought, that is it. I, as a doctor, am wired differently than business-minded people. And if I could only create that adapter, I would have different business outcomes. And that's exactly what I did. So my secret sauce is characterizing the differences between the world of business and the world of clinical medicine, and then helping people go over that bridge in both directions. So my core business value proposition is a company called Thriving Doctors, where I help doctors achieve the personal and professional and financial rewards that attracted them to a career in medicine. And the reason I'm so delighted to be working with ABS is I know that outsourcing billing, the kinds of services that the licensees offer, is a key piece to success. So it's a great honor and privilege to do that. I also help. Go ahead, Eric.
No, you go right ahead.
I also help people like, ABS figure out how to more successfully engage doctors. So this is really critical. And let me just tell you that for doctors, money is the ultimate taboo topic. Now, you are wired like a business person. You are thinking about making an entrepreneurial investment, and I honor you for doing that. I'm a serial entrepreneur myself. But just know that doctors don't think about their practice in the way that you do. They don't think about money in the way that you do. And a great physical example of that gets back to this episode of Shark Tank, which is a show I love. So a doctor went onto the Shark Tank to get funding for his company that made synthetic cadavers. This is like $1 billion industry. He'd already had $10 million in sales. The sharks were all engaged. And I thought, man, this guy's going to get a 5-shark deal. Then Mr. Wonderful started with the questions. Well, doctor, tell us about your revenue. Tell us about your profits. And this doctor on national TV got up and said, well, money's not really that important for me. It's all about the service. And with those kinds of responses, he left the Shark Tank with one deal with Robert Herjavec, which fell apart in a couple of weeks. What was the problem? He had not crossed this cultural divide. He was not talking in terms of languages that inspired the sharks to take action. And just know that as you go and talk with doctors about their business, you don't want to make the same mistake that this doctor made when he entered the Shark Tank. When you approach doctors, you want to speak their language.
Absolutely, and part of their language is knowing what's going on with the doctors and hearing from people like Dr. Wagner. Obviously, from the medical economics article that you read, there's other that I'm going to kind of just take everybody on a little tour about. There's a research company called Black Book Research. The gentleman that heads this up, the managing partner of Black Book, Doug Brown, starts off the whole part about revenue management, revenue cycle management for doctors by stating this: rising healthcare expenditures and the complex technology or staffing requirements create an urgent demand for cost-effective outsourcing solutions in physician practices across the country. Now, here are some of the statistics that they showed. That at 42%, there's going to be a 42% growth rate. Now, listen to what it says. The U.S. market for physician billing outsourcing is expected to report an overall 42% growth over the period of the quarter of 2016, which was the end of last year, through the first quarter of 2019. Dr. Rackner, if those that are entrepreneurs, if they're looking for any type of key performance indicators, 42% growth rate is not too bad to look into.
Yeah, so, you know, my husband and I have made investments in businesses before, so I know the questions that we ask. Is there a market? Is it profitable? Is there a future for me? And the answer to all of these is yes. I mean, if we look at our economy, healthcare is one of the sectors that's growing. We know that doctors are going to need to send out invoices to insurance companies. They're going to need to get paid. This is a market that's not going to go away. It's not going to get outsourced. You know, we're not going to be getting our healthcare from China or India. So, you know, just in terms of a business opportunity, you know, I'd say yes in all of the important check boxes about, you know, whether or not this is a good investment. This is kind of like one of those things that almost feels a little too good to be true. I mean, it's so lucky that you're at this place and this time. I mean, this, you know, this is, I often say, this is the right place and the right time to mine the treasures in the medical market.
There you go. Perfect. The research still goes on. There's three more I'm going to share with you, and I'll go through these pretty quickly because I don't want to run out of time here. 96% of practice leaders report inefficient billing processes. Now, again, this research just came out at the first part of the year. 51% of those that are new outsourcing clients reported decreased numbers of rejected claims and a decreased time it takes to receive monthly payments or payments from payers within 2 months of beginning outsourcing implementing that. And then 100% of the practices that are electing to outsource in 2016 noted dropping collections and times to collect. So, Dr. Rackner, this is one of the reasons why, again, 20 plus years ago, you decided to outsource the whole billing part of it. It was almost like you could foresee in the future of your expected outcomes.
Yeah, look, I had expenses. I had to pay my rent, I had medical malpractice insurance, I had payroll, and I couldn't afford not to have the cash flow to meet my financial obligations. I mean, it's just a basic business concept. You know, if you don't have cash flow, you don't have a practice.
Yeah, and that leads us to the second part of the question is, Dr. Rackner, what are some of the financial pains facing doctors? And we've already kind of talked about this, and you and I were talking about this before we started the webinar. Why don't you kind of just go in and talk about Affordable Care Act, what we know as Obamacare, however we want to talk about it. These are some of the things that are facing doctors. It may not be facing them directly as we might think financially, but this is one of those things that is just, it's unknown to anybody.
All right, so I don't want to offer you my opinions, but let's just think about this. The Affordable Care Act is an effort to ensure that all Americans have access to health insurance. The estimated bill to insure all Americans is somewhere between 1 and 2.3 billion with the B. That's not the health care costs once these insured patients actually go to the doctor. This is just to insure them. So we have to pay for this somehow. And what I will tell you is that the weight of underwriting this disproportionately falls on high-income people and especially doctors. So they're shouldering, you know, some of the higher tax burdens, some of the added costs of goods and services. But in addition, in order to pay for the Affordable Care Act, the government decided, let's build in some efficiencies. Let's create the infrastructure so that it's less expensive to administer health care. Mm-hmm. And what that really means is that doctors are expected to make an investment in doing things. There are the requirements for electronic medical records. There are a lot of costly regulatory changes. For example, in New York, pediatricians have to buy their vaccines from the state. The state now requires them to fill out 6 sets of paperwork. That means that a pediatric office might have to hire another full-time employee just to take care of these costs. So when doctors are surveyed, their major concerns are rising expenses, falling fees, and these costly regulatory changes. And even if the Affordable Care Act is repealed and replaced, and personally I don't see that happening, none of these problems are going to go away. So for doctors, the downside is already here. And it's, you know, I tend to be an optimist, but it's hard to put an optimistic spin on the kinds of financial stresses that doctors are facing. They simply cannot afford to do business as usual. It's time for doctors to reinvent the way that they're doing things.
Right. Now, we've talked about the Affordable Care Act. There's so many things. We've talked about macros already, and again, that's probably going over people's heads, so don't worry about that. We'll help you with that. But again, it's the whole thing about codes. I know last week, Patrick and I did an entire webinar on, for someone that's getting into this business, it's not your position to have to know the codes. Obviously, that's the doctor's responsibility. Last year, we went from ICD-9 to ICD-10, and I just got an email this last week stating that there are thousands of new codes that are coming out, updates here in October 1st. And this could, again, be another one of those areas where it's causing some pain to the doctors because, you know, this can be dependent upon whether they are getting paid at a certain reimbursement. And the great thing about the way our system works, as you know, Dr. Wagner, is that if they're using our EMR system and the iClaim billing platform, that it's actually making sure that the doctors are using the optimal codes as they're seeing their patients to get over that to the biller. So it really presents those that are listening today a great opportunity, as you would say, because we already have those. But again, these are just some of the other things that we've noticed with the doctors with all the different codes. And then you've already kind of talked a little bit about this already, and feel free to go into a little bit more detail on some of the 5 points that you brought out here on another webinar that you've done for our licensees.
Well, I think that we hit on most of them. And I think just going back to this ICD-10 code, the implementation was delayed over a year because it is so complex that the industry realized that doctors were not ready. Now, the difference between codes could mean a difference in the amount that I got paid 20 to 50%. Wow. So using the right code is really important. And this, keeping up with these codes is kind of like a full-time job. I know a lot of doctors are trying to go and take courses. If you go to any local medical society and take a look at the educational offerings, most of them offer doctors some kind of course in ICD-10. But I think doctors trying to keep up with this is like doctors trying to keep up with the tax code. It's complex, it's sophisticated, there's a lot of money there, and any way that you can help doctors from leaving money on the exam table could make the difference between doctors retaining their autonomy and feeling like they've got to sell out.
That's it. Well, that's a great quote. Leaving money on the examining table. That was a good one there. All right. And then, like she says, she's already talked about a lot of these already: staff retention, administrative burdens, burnout, liability theft and fraud, payer audits. You say this, the status quo is no longer sustainable. Why is that?
It's because, you know, a lot of doctors sort of feel like they're on the hamster wheel. And what they try to do now is just try to go faster and faster and faster, but there's a limit to how fast you can go. And so the book that Patrick Phillips and I wrote is really about how doctors need to get off the hamster wheel. Doing more of the same. The status quo is no longer sustainable. So, you know, doctors trying to do their own billing, it's just not going to work anymore. And I think that that's really what this medical economics paper is saying. It's saying, no, it's not business as usual. You know, if I have a paper cut, I'm going to treat it at home because I can handle it. If I amputate my finger, I'm going to go to the experts and get that done. And
Sure.
really, what everyone is saying is that this is no longer really a do-it-yourself job. And there's another element that I want to sort of throw into the mix here. We know that half of doctors are behind in retirement planning. A lot of doctors who are hoping to retire at 65 might not be able to retire until 70, 75, 80. The AMA is so concerned about this that they've actually got a special group to take a look at how we assess competency in aging doctors. So doctors were expecting their revenue to go up. For most doctors, you know, each year is a higher earning year than the year before. They can't afford to get further behind, not just for today and meeting payroll, but for thinking about tomorrow and retirement. So that's part of why the status quo needs to change for doctors.
Wow, unbelievable. Then we get to the third question that you had positioned and that we wanted to try to tackle with today. So Dr. Rackner, what are some of the opportunities for me as a prospect looking and getting to ABS?
Well, like I said, as an entrepreneur, I understand that you want to evaluate the business opportunity in an objective way. And let me just tell you that we doctors, we tend to get involved with these DDDs, these dumb doctor deals. This is not a DDD. This is the real deal. This is the real McCoy. So you are actually helping doctors do what they want to do. People have a lot of respect for doctors. You are sort of in the background, sort of helping doctors be who they want to be. So not only is this a profitable business opportunity, but this is really an opportunity to engage in an act of service, because by serving doctors, you allow them to see more patients. You allow them to retire when they want to. You allow them to avoid burnout. So like I said, this is really a win all around.
Absolutely. So, you know, again, you said the physician's pain is your opportunity. We've already listed out the pain issues. Now we're going to talk about how it becomes the opportunity. And you've already mentioned about the book that you and Patrick wrote called The New Thriving Medical Practice, How to Get Off the Hamster Wheel, Work Smarter, Not Harder, Generate More Revenue, and Enjoy Greater Career Satisfaction in the Post-Obama Care Era. Now, the great thing about it is we actually are going to help you position yourself as the expert right off the bat by here at ABS, we put you writing the foreword to the book. You can see down there where it says foreword by Susan Smith. Susan Smith is just a make-up name to let you know that would be your name. You would actually have your name printed on the book, as you can see right down here, and have your content information and contact information as the person that did actually write the foreword of the book. What an ingenious thing that you and Patrick put together here, Dr. Rackner.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I just mercilessly plagiarized this idea from other smart people with whom I work. So here's what I want you guys to know. That's that doctors don't want to work with a vendor. Doctors want to work with the experts. And if you're the guy or gal who wrote the book, and if your name's on the front cover, you know, that's how doctors are going to see you. This is an incredible marketing tool. This will put you in an entire different class. than other people who are trying to get doctors' attention by selling. This is completely different, and it is really successful. So, Eric, what kinds of results are the licensees getting with this book?
Oh my goodness! I mean, you talk about getting your foot in the door, and then so many people ask, well, how do I get my foot in the door? Folks, instead of think about this, instead of that you're out there, you're marketing, you're networking with the business world, instead of just leaving a pamphlet, you're leaving a book with your contact information and your business card. That carries a little bit of weight, more than just a brochure that is left by the person that maybe was there before you. We know what happens to brochures. They end up in the trash. Books don't, especially whenever we teach you during our training class to tab those things. So you see these little Post-it marks. We strategically know in our training class, which is going to be next week for those that are attending, that are going to be going through this, where you're going to put these little tabs through there and then highlight these specific areas, so that when the doctor does get it, instead of them having to sit down and read the whole thing, I mean, we just make it so much easier where they can go, oh wow, they tabbed this one, oh, and it's highlighted there. So really what this is doing is really shortcutting the way that the doctor's actually going to end up reading the book. And whenever these books get into the doctor's hands, whether it's through networking, whether it's actually mailed specifically to the doctor, and we show you how to do that, where the doctor actually does get that open. Folks, this is an incredible way, because this is where people are actually getting past the gatekeepers, getting into the doctor, talking to the doctors, and really getting. And so I know of one licensee, Dr. Ratner, that did this at the end of last year. She saw 3 doctors, got appointments with all 3 of those doctors, and before the end of the year was, she had signed 3 contracts with doctors. So that's how powerful this book can be in the hands of a well-trained ABS licensee. All right, so now let's talk about your book, The Myth of the Rich Doctor. Now this is something that's kind of outside of the ABS part of it, but I think you actually want to make a quick offering here to those that are on the webinar today.
Well, yes. Okay, so let me tell you how this book came to be. So I had a distant relative who was an orthopedic surgeon, and then he retired, then he went to law school, and so he tried medical malpractice lawsuits. And he always had the best of everything, you know, mansion, vacation home, luxury travel. Well, a couple of years ago he died, and what they discovered was that he left his wife nothing but debt. Around the same time, another one of my friends who's an anesthesiologist, I read in the paper that he donated several $1 million to lymphoma research. So I started wondering, you know, what separates wealthy doctors from struggling doctors? And I talked with hundreds and hundreds of doctors about their money. And this book basically is what I've learned. It's kind of like The Millionaire Next Door, so I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just kind of talking about doctors and their relationship with money, and talking about the state of doctors' financial health. And I will tell you that for whatever reason, this is really hitting a nerve. I'm going to be traveling 4 consecutive weeks, going and doing talks and book signings. So this is really working. Doctors really like this. And I would be delighted to give you a digital copy as my gift to you, so you can read the book, and that will give you a little more background and insight into doctors and their relationship with money, which is going to put you in a better position to be able to successfully engage doctor prospects and clients.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Ratner. All right, so if you heard what she said, she is going to offer this book as a digital copy to you. How do you get that? What I want you to do is, as soon as we get through with the webinar today, contact your the coach that you're working with here at ABS. So whether it's any of us here, if you don't know who it is, just call us. We'll make sure that you get a copy of it. So don't feel like you're not going to get a copy of it. So if you want to get a copy of The Myth of the Rich Doctor, the digital copy, get with the person that brought you and asked you to join the webinar today, and we'll be able to get you one either later this afternoon or tomorrow. So, Dr. Rackner, thank you for sharing that. You talk about a wealth of information, folks. As you're doing your due diligence of getting involved in this this whole business of medical billing, you can't get any better than hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to say, hearing it from the doctor, Dr. Vickie Rackner. Now, folks, the way that's lined out both in the Thriving New Practice and somewhat in the myth of the rich doctor, it's talking about everything that we've talked about today. Some of the ways that you are going to be able to take advantage of that is that with ABS, you're going to have a platform, services that is actually going to help you get the doctors paid quicker. Gail, you wrote a question a little bit of times ago, and I've been waiting to get to this point to answer your question. And Gail's asking the question, what is the average turn time for a claim to be paid? Now, I'm going to answer that in two ways. The average turn time that a claim is getting paid conventionally, and I'm saying conventionally, not using the iClaim platform, it's taking anywhere from 30 to 45 days for a doctor to get the turnaround from the time that they see the patient to the time that they actually get paid by seeing that patient. With our system, with the iClaim system, and what makes it different is that there is an extra element in there that actually gives us the opportunity to get this claim directly to the payers instead of it going to a third-party clearinghouse and then to the insurance payers. We're able to capture that information, stay within our system, because not only are we the medical billing platform, but we also are the clearinghouse. So just kind of in a layman's terms to understand what that means is when you process a claim in our iClaim platform, we're actually delivering it directly to the insurance payers, and there is no other system that does that. If you'd like to see a demonstration of that, again, feel free to contact us. We'll set up a demonstration so you can see the system, so you can see exactly how that works, and kind of show that to you in another little format. Our system is the only one that has a full closed-in system. This is one of the things that Dr. Rackner really likes about, and really why she joined in fellowship with us here at ABS, is that because we've got a practice management system, an EMR system, a clearinghouse, and the patient portal all knit together. These are not four separate companies. They're not four separate pieces of software. It's all one software in four different sections. And this really is delivering the claims that we can make. I was talking with someone just the other day, asking, how can you make the claims that you can get a claim paid faster and reduce the doctor's rejected claims? It's through here. It's this scenario that I'm showing you right here. And again, we would be happy to demonstrate that for you. And hopefully, Gail, that helped answer your question. So just imagine taking a doctor, the time in which they get paid from 30 to 45 days down to 7 to 10 days. Dr. Rackner, I know in everything that you've said so far, if doctors are already struggling, to get them paid a little bit quicker could certainly help them from having to go to the bank, taking out a loan just to pay payroll.
Absolutely. I mean, this can mean the difference between burnout and not burnout, between retaining their autonomy and sort of feeling like they've got to sell out. This is huge. But it's not just the decrease in time for payment. It's the fact that doctors know that there is a professional out there who's going to follow up on all of those rejected claims. You know, well, Patrick was telling me the story that one doctor showed him the doctor's Porsche drawer. He opened up the drawer, there were a bunch of rejected claims, and the doctor said, I know if I followed up on these rejected claims, I'd be able to afford a luxury sports car, but there they sat. And so just having that support, having that kind of certainty that doctors are going to get paid what they deserve and what they're really owed is just huge. It's huge emotionally, it's huge financially.
You got it, absolutely. So folks, what we're showing you just real quickly are some of the solutions, the question was, how do you benefit or how can you take advantage and get in the opportunity here? It's through these platforms of either iClaim, EMRX. If you haven't done any of your research on this, again, the best research that you can see or do is to actually see this demonstrated for you. So again, any of us here are capable of showing that to you. The great thing about it is, a part of your support, we also do the demonstrations of the software on your behalf to your doctors. I'm actually doing one tomorrow for a licensee. Looking forward to doing that, because not only do we help you get into the business, but once you're in the business, we help you get your doctors. We have all of the documentation for all of your HIPAA compliancy rules, all of your contracts that you're going to need. We help you with the pricing. So you're not going to be out there just kind of left alone, not knowing what to do. We really are here to help you all along the way. And then with the other services, whether it's Audit Guard, Quick Collect, Audit Guard, Code Right, Choice Pay, iDocs Now, and folks, I would love to be able to tell you some of the new services that we are about to come out with. Remember, I do a lot of research and development here with the entire team. We're rolling out some new strategies already. We're seeing great results with that. We're seeing licensees get into the doctor's office so much quicker. Matter of fact, we're seeing doctors actually calling the licensees actually to show up. You can't get a better result than a doctor giving you a call saying, hey, I just got some information. I need to see you. I need this service, or I need this, whatever you might have. That's the incredible part of what we're doing here at ABS, and look forward to sharing with you very, very soon. We're rolling it out to a select group of licensees to test market out there, and like I said, we're having some great, great results. Dr. Ratner, we got about 3 minutes left. There were only really 2 questions that got asked today. I think through everything that you and I have talked about today, we probably answered most of the questions for folks. So, Dr. Ratner, I thank you for taking your time. I mean, obviously you're a very busy lady. You're going from one place to the other. You're doing podcast recordings. You're just doing it. You're doing webinars like this. And I know from Patrick, he would love to be able to tell you thank you. So I say that on behalf of all of us here at ABS. Thank you for what you do to help us here at ABS and with our licensees as well.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is really a great business opportunity. And Eric, in closing, I just wanted to reinforce something that you just said, which is, you want to know, are you getting involved with the business that grows? And the thing about doctors is they kind of gossip like teenage girls. So if you do a terrific job for a doctor, they're going to tell their buddies. And, how many other businesses do you get your customers basically being your sales force? So that's a really exciting thing. The other thing that I wanted to say is I've had the pleasure of working with ABS for a number of years now. I've got a bunch of relationships with strategic partners. And I have never seen any organization as committed to the members of the organization. I mean, just think about this. Patrick and I have, in the past couple of years, we've written a book together. We've created educational series. I mean, ABS has this ongoing commitment to helping you thrive. And you know how special it is to run into people with true integrity. You want to take a look at your team as you take a look at the business opportunity. So from my standpoint, I just really applaud you for taking a serious look at this opportunity with ABS. And Eric, thanks so much for the opportunity to sort of share some of my ideas.
Absolutely. I mean, wealth of information. Thank you so much, Dr. Ratner. Thank you so much.
I'm going to sign off then. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Thanks, ma'am.